Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand-Up Speakeasy. I am your host, Sreth Nay, and every episode of the Stand-Up Speakeasy, I bring on a comic from all over the country. We talk about their comedy journey and so forth. But this is a special one because Ricky and we've done a show together in Longmont, Colorado, as well as a festival in Pueblo, Colorado. And those two cities were part of my life growing up. So without further ado, give it up for Ricky Ramos. Hey, Ricky, how are you, boss?
Yo, how are you, Sareth? What's good with you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Th-
You're amazing, and thank you so much for being a part of my comedy journey so far. I mean, we first met when I reached out to you when I was going on tour, and the Speakeasy was one of my spots that you allowed me to grace your stages on. And I remembered I had to go to the Mutiny Information Cafe to do another show, and I bombed completely there. Atomically, like Inspector Deck. It was just crazy bomb. Like it was just dead silent. But then we reconnected, and I got to have you perform at Sreth Fest, and that was such an awesome experience because I got to see Pueblo, and I saw pictures of you at the Riverwalk and all that good stuff. And how was your experience at the fest?
the festival was awesome. The festival was incredible. It was cool. The only thing, obviously, with 2020 was it was the COVID year, so everything was online. Everything was live streaming. We didn't really have a live audience. We had a small live audience, but that was I guess that you could say that was the only downfall of the whole festival was we didn't have an actual live audience. But other than that, the festival was fun. The festival was cool. I had a great time. I enjoyed every minute of it. Pueblo was awesome. You can't go to Pueblo without getting chased down by a crackhead. So that was fun. The Riverwalk was amazing. It was good eats down there too. So yeah, it was an all around good deal for me, and to be a part of the festival was an awesome experience. So I appreciate you having me down there.
Awesome. It was an honor, sir. And I was glad you got to perform again with me and Wu Manchu. And I remember he interviewed you on his show. So that was a fun one.
Yeah.
Indeed, Ricky. So what's it like performing stand-up in Longmont and the surrounding in northern Colorado? Because I've never performed much in northern Colorado.
Um, Colorado comedy is, it is what it is. It's a fun experience. I think what makes Colorado great and the Colorado comedy scene great is that we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different stories to tell. And Denver being such a multicultural gumbo as it is, for all of us to come together and tell all of our different stories, I think that's an incredible aspect of Colorado comedy. Because not everybody comes from the same place. So for all of us to tell all of our stories from a different perspective is, and the way I look at it is it's not so much so cultural as like a New York City or an LA. We got the western part of it. We're on the western slope. I got buddies that are living in the projects, but I got buddies that are countryside operating Caterpillar machines. So I think just Colorado in all its essence makes the Colorado comedy scene, I guess, into its own entity, you could say. And it's, Denver comics and Fort Collins comics or Pueblo comics or whatever the case may be. I think the Colorado comedy scene itself is so diverse that no matter if you're in Fort Collins or you're in Longmont or you're in Denver or you're in the Springs or you're even in Pueblo, you're going to find a really good show from comics that are from all over. We go down to Pueblo, we go up to Fort Collins, all travel up and down the state. And I think, like I said, anywhere you go within the state, you'll find an awesome show just in that aspect. So.
Absolutely. I had a great time in Longmont, Denver, except for the time I bombed and all that stuff. But Colorado Springs has a good, strong thing. And, a lot of people ask me, like, if you could move anywhere, I'd say either move to Longmont so you can bounce between, like, the, Fort Collins, Boulder, and Denver, or move to Colorado Springs so you can bounce in Pueblo and Denver and, surrounding areas. But it's just, it's just great to live in the middle. That's what I'm doing now in Florida, is like living in the middle and just like not traveling very far to do a show, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And I feel like, the more things progress as far as the COVID is concerned, the wide open spaces like Florida, Texas, things of that nature. I think that's going to come into fruition as well, because it is more open space and it is, a bigger area. I've even been considering, we're looking into a couple of different rooms in a couple of different states, one being in South Dakota, one being in Texas, and one being in like the Tennessee area. So as side splitting entertainment expands, we are looking at wider areas, because of what COVID brings now. If we can have more space, if we can have more open spaces, obviously we can have more people, and more people becomes more revenue. So I think definitely places like Florida and Texas and places that have a lot more space than Colorado are going to be the forefronts when it comes to comedy shows after the pandemic.
Absolutely. They're wide open now. I mean, they don't wear a mask. And I went to my open mic, my homeroom last night, and I was like one of two people that wore masks in there. But I'm trying to make my magnum opus of a comedy record with like 12 open mic sets, and on an album. And it's turning out pretty good, I think. So,
yeah.
But I'm risking it, because I'm like, I'm just, I'm going to die for comedy if I have to, but I'm going to get this thing done and get it out of my system. So I don't know.
But I mean, you can always cut a demo and then record another album later, right?
Yep. Make a mixtape, if you will.
Yeah, there you go. Drop an EP real quick before you drop the LP.
Absolutely, indeed. And I saw pictures of you performing with Rick in South Dakota. And what was that whole experience like performing in South Dakota?
South Dakota was amazing. South Dakota is a fun place. I love South Dakota. We actually went there last summer before I did the Sareth Fest. We went down there and took the kids down there and did the whole Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse, the whole nine. Stayed up in a lake house up there. So I loved it up there when we went up there, and then to go back and be able to do comedy, that was a great experience. It was a great thing. I loved every minute of it. The crowd was awesome. Like I said, we're thinking about, I've already got in touch with some city officials up there. And I think what I'm going to plan on doing is doing a comedy festival up there. And I think it's going to be based in Deadwood. So that's something that'll come into fruition later on down the road. But South Dakota was an amazing place. Again, more laxed. Masks were at your discretion. It wasn't, a whole thing about it. So like I said, it goes back to, once again, having that space, that open space, to where, if you have more wide open space, you have room. And if you have room, then obviously, things like masks and stuff are going to come down. So.
Absolutely. Indeed. And man, like, I'm so excited to hear that Side Splitting Entertainment is like expanding in all those different states and getting all those different rooms. And what are some of your favorite places to perform coast to coast and all that stuff?
The goal is to go out east. We've been out west pretty much a lot. Traveled up north a little bit, like I said, to South Dakota. But the goal is to go out east. Business associate of mine is down in Tennessee in the area right now. And he's been scoping things out for us down there. We got some connections out in Atlanta. So I'm actually going to Utah here at the end of March, early April. And then we turn around and come back home for a little bit. And then we're probably going to go back out to Atlanta after that. So we have connections down south. And I have some connections up north as well as up in New York. Obviously, you're out in Florida. So, we would be able to suffice these rooms with plenty of comedians. So, and that's kind of the goal, is to, start a room, work a room, and let it grow to the point where, I can have one of the connections take care of it, rather than myself having to go out there every so often and take care of it. Just in that simple aspect that, like I said, we would have enough comedians to make sure that, shows could be put on, shows could be ran in different states. The only thing, Side Splitting Entertainment's name would be slapped on the top of it. So.
Indeed, absolutely. And yeah, Atlanta is super dope, and I got to perform at the Relapse Theater before it closed, and I was where Rory Scovel filmed his Netflix special. Man,
nice.
That place was magical, man. It was beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Georgia is pretty dope. And so let's see here. I want to for this portion of the shows I want to see if your answers changed from when we Manchu interviewed you. And so if it's anything has updated yet. So with that being said, these are the usual questions I ask you, Ricky. And what inspired you to perform stand up comedy?
It was actually I'm actually working on another interview right now with the ACLU of Colorado. We're doing an ACLU redemption campaign, American Civil Liberties Union, doing a redemption campaign for post inmates, re reintroduction into society type deals. But yeah, this question was brought up in that interview as well. And I think I told you before, it was actually provoked by a judge. Judge had told me, hey, you're getting into a little bit too much trouble. You came from a big city like Denver. I need you to settle down and kind of figure out something constructive to do with your time. And in doing so, had a buddy that was, getting into writing comedy, performing comedy. So I asked him, hit him up. From there, it was obviously a bomb from the beginning, but we took it as a challenge. I ran with it, and now it's grown into something that's impossible to stop at this point.
And I'm proud of you. Just following you with on side splitting and all that good stuff. It's just amazing how everything's unfolding for you from like the good or from the bad to the good. It's just you're building something with that constructive time now. It's great to see. And Ricky, what was it feeling like when you first performed stand up?
First performing stand up was obviously, like I said, I bombed. It was, a whole, not letdown, but it was kind of like, you're excited for this one thing. You're excited for this, to be a part of something, and you realize you completely suck at it. It's not so much discouraging, but it is telling you, hey, look, this is something you got to try. This is something you got to, at least put your best foot forward in. And who would have thunk, 7 years later that we'd be in the boat that we're in? But that's just what happens is, at first it was, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take it as a challenge. And then I got kind of successful at it. I was still getting into trouble, still, having to go in and out of jail. And it wasn't just until recently where it was, okay, maybe this thing can work. I think it was, for me, I think what it was being bumped up from the C list to the B list at Comedy Works, and actually starting to be recognized as a rotational comic in Colorado. I think that was that pinnacle point where it was like, okay, this can actually work. Like, let's actually try to give this a go. And then from there, we, did merchandise. We started going on the road more. We started, implementing more shows, trying to do other things. We're working on a television show as well. So, I'm even expanding to the point where I think I'm going to start hosting a hip hop open mic for the Northern Colorado hip hop scene. So I think that's another, direction we're going to go as well, as far as, implementing different kinds of shows. We're, like I said, we're side splitting entertainment being in the fact that we don't have to just condense ourselves to comedy. We can help out the hip hop community as well. So.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Comedy Works, and that I performed once on Thanksgiving at the one in downtown, and hopefully they open up soon because that venue is legendary. But I've never been on the South Side one. And what do you like between the South Side and the downtown one? What are your favorite memories from those two venues?
Downtown is always. I mean, downtown's popping. Downtown. Like I've been to a few places, but to have a comedy club pop in on a Tuesday, that lets you're downtown Denver. The Comedy Works is great for that. Great to get in there, get you a tape going. It's people are there to laugh. People are there to have a good time. So, to go in on a Tuesday night for new talent night and to crush it, it feels good. No matter who you are. And the South Club is fun. I've done the South Club a couple of times already. And one of the good things about the South Club is they're two totally different worlds. In my book, It's a lot more high class, a lot more uppity, a lot more, sport coats and loafers versus, just regular downtown folk. So the South Club is good as far as, if you can get laughs in the South Club at a consistent rate, just like you do at the downtown club, it lets you know that, you're doing something right as far as your material is concerned.
Indeed, most definitely. I definitely have to check out the South Side one, and it looks pretty neat. Stages are all different and all that good stuff. And what are your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
It was funny because I just I was listening to some comedy today, but I usually start my mornings off with the Breakfast Club, 1051, with Charlemagne the God, DJ Envy, and Angela Yee. I usually start my day off with that, and then if I do go into some comedy, I was listening to some Mike Epps today. Who else was on there? Felipe Esparza, Joey Diaz. I just kind of put it on a shuffle mode on comedy, and it, Ari Spears comes up, different kinds of comics. Basically, the comics that I was raised with, comics that I have more in tune with, in touch with, more comics that are relatable. One of the comics that I love to listen to is Felipe Esparza. He's just, his dynamic and the way he does things and the way he talks about things is, it's the way I grew up, in the ghetto. And I wasn't necessarily a Mexican from Mexico. So I didn't, speak that much Spanish, and it was a different lifestyle than a straight Mexican household. So yeah, just listening to the different aspects, different stories, different dynamics of comics. Mike Epps is another one of my favorites, talk about, being in jail. Same with Ali Sadiq, he's got a whole bit about being in jail as well. So comics that basically, are on a different playing field as far as what they've been through in their life, I guess I tend to gravitate more towards.
Indeed, and I love Felipe too, and hopefully this will lead you on to go on his podcast, What's Up Food, because that's a really cool podcast he has going on there. So I enjoy that podcast with Felipe.
Nice.
Yep. And so what some of those guys have been on TV and film, and what are your favorite sitcom, sketch shows, and comedy films?
Sketch shows. Sketch shows, you got to go classics. Dave Chappelle, Cam Peel. Those guys, were obviously, they blew up the sketch show scene. Back in the day, it was Mad TV, of course, Saturday Night Live. One of my newest favorite comedies that came out not too long ago was Good Boys. That was geniusly written. That was a great movie to watch. It was one of those movies where you laugh so much at the end of it, you're like, man, like I'm out of breath because I've been laughing so hard. And that just goes to prove that, comedy is very well still much alive in movies, in stand-up specials, in all of the aspects of entertainment. People are consistently working on new stuff that lets you know that comedy will never die. When you go to see a movie like Good Boys and you laugh your ass off through the entire movie, that just, like I said, it lets you know that comedy will never die.
Indeed, Good Boys was so good. I watched it in theaters with my pals and had me rolling every time. It was good stuff. And favorite sitcoms?
Favorite sitcoms? It's been a minute since I've sat down and watched some sitcoms. It was growing up. It was, Seinfeld. I didn't really understand Seinfeld till I got older. But once I got older and understood that dynamic of dry humor, Seinfeld became one of my favorites. Of course, The Simpsons. I sit down and I watch The Simpsons every so often on my Disney Plus. I just start watching some old Muppets since it's back on Disney as well. You can't go wrong with Family Guy and, those kind of adult cartoons. Robot Chicken was one of my favorites growing up as well. Um, Man, I can't think of any others. When I was young, I remember watching Married with Children with my dad. So I've always had that, that great aspect of TV. Even my grandma used to watch old Sanford and Son and All in the Family and Hogan's Heroes and all that kind of stuff. So, as far as TV sitcoms, I've been watching comedy TV sitcoms my whole life.
Indeed. And who are your favorite Muppets?
My favorite, I would have to say, is Gonzo, and second behind that is I gotta do Beaker. I gotta do Beaker. It's a toss up between Gonzo and Beaker, but I think I gotta give Gonzo the top spot on that one.
Indeed, I love Gonzo too, and I love Fozzie because he's a stand-up comedian.
Fozzie's, yeah, you gotta love Fozzie because he does throw in the waka wakas. So
Absolutely, indeed. And let's see here. Uh, if you can go on tour with any comedian, locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
if I could go on tour with any comedians, I would probably have to say nationally. I'd like to do like an Ali Sadiq or a Mike Epps show, um, and locally, oh man, anything that they got going on in Colorado, man, just to be a part of any kind of Colorado comedians, is to work with Colorado comedians is the best. So anything got going on at the Comedy Works, David Rodriguez just opened up the Comedy Fort in Fort Collins. Big shout out to David Rodriguez. You know, to work with him, to work with what they got going on in Fort Collins, them guys up there. Real Somebody Posa runs the East Coast up there as well. Big shout out to her. I know Rudy Garcia runs the Moxie in Greeley. So, anytime you get with any kind of good producer, they're going to put you up on a good lineup, and a good producer will put you up on a lineup where you feel comfortable enough to crush it, but you all also feel uncomfortable enough to strive for more.
Indeed. And internationally known comics?
Internationally known comics, god damn, I'd have to give it up to probably the other Ricky Gervais, man. I mean, he is a different kind of comedian than what I bring to the table, but I mean, he's a Ricky, and there's not, a whole lot of famous Rickies that I know anyway. Ricky Henderson and maybe a Ricky Lake, but
Indeed. Awesome. And let's see here. If you can get roasted by 5 comedians, past and present, which comedians would have to get roasted by?
Let's see, 5 would be George Carlin. 4 would be Richard Pryor. 3 would be Eddie Murphy. I was actually listening to him a little bit today, so I'll probably have to give it up to some Bernie Mac in there. And then number 1, I'd have to go with like a new school comic, like an Ali Sadiq or a Mike Epps. So,
absolutely. And where do you see your comedy journey in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I hope to be deeper in this empire than I can ever imagine to be. In the next 5 years, like I said, we want to try to open up shows in. I want to try to do festivals in Utah and in South Dakota. I want to open up a show in Houston and in Tennessee. So, I guess expansion as far as 5 years is concerned, I want to be expanded more than I've ever thought possible.
Absolutely. Speaking of expanding, I'm bringing Sweatfest to Florida because I can afford everybody to come from Florida to Colorado. So I'm right there with you. So I'm starting it in Daytona Beach in October. So we'll have
nice.
2. Yeah, it's gonna be dope. And
nice.
Absolutely. So I'll help you take over Florida too if you want. So,
okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. I'll use my connections. I got the hookup like Master P. So
okay. All right.
Absolutely. And Ricky, what's your favorite joke a comic has ever written?
Favorite joke a comic has ever written? I was, like I said, I was listening to some stuff earlier today, and Mike Epps he does a joke about being in special education. I think it's on the album is uh, underrated, never faded, X-rated, and he does a joke about being in special ed and how they had him in special ed for like the majority of his school time. Like he had been in special ed all the way up until high school. Um, and just him talking about the aspect of being in special ed, like, how the other kids would talk to him. And he talks about, how he used to have to go to the bathroom and there'd be one of the special kids in the bathroom. And he was the type of kid that pull his pants all the way down to pee, So just things, just stories. My favorite comic is a comic who can tell a story and make that story so vivid and make you witness it in your head and make you feel like you're actually there watching this take place. So big shout out to Mike Epps for being one of the greatest storytellers out there.
Absolutely, man. That joke is hilarious. I did stand up last night and I talked about my horror stories from high school, and man, I got like little laughs and then one big applause break, and I'm like, all right, I'll put that on my record. Awesome. And what experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
After my set is over, I would love for people to take a step back and not so much look at a stereotype, but look at an individual and realize that there's something beyond the way that individual looks. There's something beyond the way that individual carries himself, because we're all going to be labeled with stereotypes. And just the other day, I'm about to put it in my set, when I get back on the mic here in a couple of weeks out in Utah. I was at Walmart and I bought a sound bar because we just moved into a condo. So I bought a sound bar for my TV. And as I'm walking out, I'm joking with my wife and we're walking out of Walmart, and everybody, like, there's a group of people walking with us. But the individual who was working the door at that time stopped me and he's like, "Hey, do you have a receipt for that sound bar?" And I was like, this motherfucker. I'm like, yes, as a matter of fact, I fucking do have a receipt. Like, I was so excited to show him that receipt. And he was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, no, you don't have to show me. He's like, you're fine. And it's like, oh my God, this whole crowd, you stereotyped me to ask me for my receipt. You know what I mean? But that's how it is. We walk down the street, we get stereotyped. We walk down the street, we get pulled over by cops. That's just the way it goes, when you've been in that situation your whole life. I look at my neighbors now. My neighbors, they know me as a stand-up comic. They don't, they don't know I work a day job. They think that, the situation that we're in, I'm an entertainer, because I'm suspect in my own neighborhood over here. I can't even walk my dogs without, feeling like I don't even have a good enough credit score. I should be cutting the grass in this neighborhood, not walking my dog in this neighborhood. So, but that's, one of the biggest things is don't be so quick to judge somebody by the way they look.
Indeed. And that's why I perform stand-up in Daytona, because we're the island of misfit toys and we're all different, and everyone wants to be us from all these cities. And that's why they always come to our homeroom and perform, because we accept them for being weird from the different scenes.
Nice.
Heck yeah. And so, Ricky, this is the stand-up speakeasy where it's like this Roaring Twenties of Prohibition. It's probably named after your venue, the Speakeasy, if you will. So, awesome venue. And with that being said, Ricky, which comics in Colorado would you like to see on a future episode of the Stand-Up Speakeasy?
For sure, I got a shout out. I know you talked to Rick Bryan. I know you talked to him. Big shout out to Rick Bryan. Always putting me, we're working together these days a lot more. It seems like he puts me on, I put him on, he puts me on. So big shout out to Rick Bryan. Like I said, big shout out to David Rodriguez out in Fort Collins. He's he just opened the Comedy Fort out there. They're doing fairly well, even with the restrictions and the guidelines. Big shout out to David Rodriguez in the Comedy Fort. Big shout out to Rosa Mariposa out there in Fort Collins as well. Out at the East Coast. She runs a show out there at the East Coast, and they're doing big things. They just moved into a bigger venue It's a little nicer venue over there than what they were in. So big shout out to them. Let's see who else be running shows. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but those two definitely for sure come to mind right away, especially David Rodriguez, because I know he put a whole hell of a lot into the comedy fort and building the fort and getting investors and getting lenders and, going through the whole process. So big shout out to him for holding down Fort Collins in that manner as well. He kind of pulled the rug out from underneath me and Black Pegasus and BKG and everybody up there at Hody's that we used to rock with up there. Now BKG is officially homeless when it does come to Northern Colorado hip hop, but we are actually working on a venue. I think we might even do something here at the Dickens across the street from the Speakeasy. But we'll figure something out. But big shout out to David though, man. He turned Hody's into a great comedy club now. So you got to definitely check him out at the Comedy Fort, and definitely check out Rosa Mariposa at the East Coast. She just put on a big benefit for Doug Ware. Rest in peace, Doug Ware. He was a great comic out of Fort Collins as well. He was a very friendly guy, always down to help people. And unfortunately, he got a heart attack, so we just did a benefit for him up there. But yeah, definitely those two, man, are the two that come to mind. So
awesome. And yeah, I love the Northern Colorado hip hop scene. Like I got to see Kubala perform at the Hody's and Kind of, and it's just a great scene. Yeah,
dude, I got to host for King ISO. Shout out to King ISO from Strange Music. I got to host for Kasky. Shout out to Kasky from Cash Money. I got to host for Alpha and Self Titled. I got to host for Snack the Ripper. I got to host for Top Flight Empire. Shout out to Top Flight Empire out here in Colorado. Dude, there was endless concerts that I got to host and be a part of at Hody's. It was a beautiful venue, and I was blessed to be able to be a part of Hody's like that. So
absolutely, we'll miss your Hody's, but I'm glad the Comedy Fort's there and all that good stuff. And shout out to BKG and all those fine folks, Black P and all those hip hoppers out in Colorado Springs. I love the scene there too, like Bullheaded and all those kind folks. Reminders. Good stuff.
I'm actually getting ready to do BKG Black Pegasus. We're doing his podcast, the 40-Year-Old Fuckboys, in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure when, but it'll be here before I go out to Utah. But yeah, big shout out to Black Pegasus, BKG. We're gonna be out there doing his podcast here in a couple of weeks. So
awesome. And speaking of Rick, he tried to jump in, and I was gonna have him jump in the end and surprise you, but he left already. I was like, dang it! And his interview with me, my interview with him was just amazing. Like we spent like an hour and a half, and it was just like an awesome interview. He's an awesome guy, and I'm so happy he's headlining one of the dates this year. So we're gonna have it out back, same venue, but outside this time, and so everyone's safe. So we got it all figured out this year now. So thank goodness. So yeah, awesome. And Ricky, I can't wait to work with you again. I'm hoping to move back to Colorado, but as soon as I pay back all these guys for throwing me on their shows in Florida, I'll try and get you out here because, man, Florida's treating me well. They're just amazing.
Anytime you want to holler at me, I'm down to come to Florida. So
indeed, I'll absolutely. I gotta get paid my dues first with all these Florida comics. I'm not in debt to them because I'm already am. But man, they keep on throwing me on shows. But I gotta get them back. But they're so amazing, and I can't wait to introduce you to all of them. They're like the best ones here. You're gonna be happy.
I'm down. I'm down for it.
Awesome, Ricky. And follow like Side Splitting Entertainment on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to Ricky's YouTube channel. Scrolling on the bottom in the description box below. And with that being said, Ricky, are there any final words you'd like to give out to the audience at home?
Yeah, big shout out to Side Splitting Entertainment. That's my shit. Look us up. We got merchandise for sale. We got t-shirts. We got hoodies. We got stickers. We'll be out in Club 90 April 3rd in Salt Lake City, Utah. Check us out. It's a West production. We'll be out there. Like I said, big shout out to BKG. Black Pegasus will be on the 40-Year-Old Fuck Boys podcast here in a couple of weeks. And then, yeah. Big shout out to the Speakeasy here in Longmont. Last Thursdays of the month. You can find us here. This month we got Christy Buckley from Fox's Just for Laughs. And then next month, we got Ben Kronberg from Late Night with Seth Meyers. So, yeah, definitely check us out, man. It's going to be a great summer. I hope to be seeing you soon. I hope to work with you soon. And if I don't see you, maybe we'll take a cruise down with Rick Bryan when he headlines the festival and check you out.
That'd be awesome, bud. That'd be amazing. And yeah, Christy is going to be on the fest this year, too. I interviewed her earlier, and she's a sweetheart, and I can't wait to I'm trying to bring some more Northern Colorado comics in here, and because, man, like, Pueblo seems like on life support, so I'm trying to like revive it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's pretty dead out there, but I got faith in you.
Thank you, brother, man. I have faith in you too when you grow that empire from coast to coast. I can't wait to see how it unfolds. It's going to be amazing. And thank you so much, Ricky, for being my guest today. It means the world to me. And awesome, stellar guy, man. Thank you for performing at Strath Fest. And I'm sorry that COVID, took all the fans away, but I'm glad you got your stage time and I got to interview you again. And you're the best. And I think the world.
Yeah, I wouldn't have changed it for the world, man. I had a blast. I enjoyed it. My lady got chased by a crackhead. It was one of the best things that could happen to me in Pueblo. So
awesome. Much love, Ricky. And thank you so much for being my guest today. And for everyone else at home, be safe, take care of each other. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Stand Up Speakeasy. Be well, everyone. Take care.